विश्वमेदिनि विश्वविनोदिनि नन्दिनुते गिरिवरविन्द्यशिरोदिनि वासिनि विष्णुविलासिनि जिष्णुनुते भगवति हेशितिकण्ठकुटुम्बिनि भूरि कुटुम्बिनि भूरि कृते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते सुरवरवर्षिणि दुर्धरदर्शिनि दुर्मुखमर्षिणि हर्षरते त्रिभुवनपोषिणि शङ्करतोषिणि किल्बिषमोषिनि घोषरते धनुजनि रोषिनि दिथिसुतरोषिनि दुर्मथतोषिनि सिन्धुसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते
Hi guys, thank you for joining the live stream. Let me know if the audio is coming fine and all. And since I don't know whether it's coming fine or not, Nandish, hello. So guys, today what we are basically going to discuss is the introduction to the famous book by Adam Smith called The Theory of Moral Sentiments. Introduction written by Amartya Sen for a number of reasons. But first, let me tell you how I got there, okay? Oh, Nandish is saying I have an early flight tomorrow, but alas, I'm watching this because it's so refreshing to hear a new interview. Thank you very much. Shomatonu is saying tomorrow leftist Labour Party will win the UK election. Your view on this? Yeah, great. People from Pakistan and Bangladesh have reverse colonized England, and they didn't even know it. Kind of like how our colonization happened. We didn't really know that it's a colonization one fine morning. Villagers in Bengal in 1757 were getting oppressed by Siraj-ud-Dowla, and that king gets ousted and some other king comes up, and people think it's just life as usual. We are going to get oppressed more or less, and instead of that, there are bridges and trains coming up and stuff. But England has no idea that their end is nearing now. If in saying, oh, please check out that video, please. Which video? Some other day on the audience introduction days, we'll check it out. Shal Sharma is saying, hey, do you have Samagra Savarkar Vangmay? So surprising BJP doesn't have it on their website. They don't have it. Why don't they have it, man? No, I have only Savarkar's Hindu Rashtra Darshan, which is his compilation of his history of the Maratha Confederacy. Then it has the second section of the book is his speeches across the country, and his including his speech in Kolkata. And the third part is Essentials of Hindutva. Shomoton is saying, but the Conservatives have messed up UK economy. Anti-incumbency is the reason for Tory loss. Not entirely. Do you think any Conservative is really voting for the Labour Party because they are so unhappy? It's not like the kind of the equivalent of the Maulana Modi wing of, let's say, UK. It's not like they are so pissed off with Rishi Sunak or the Conservatives that they are now going to punish them by voting against them. It's not happening. They are just outrun. They are just outnumbered, and they don't know it yet. What I'm saying about mainly Bengal, okay? Bhagavatishan debate on economy. I have heard of it, but I don't know anything about it, okay? You need also have affiliate links to the books you recommend. Oh, what is affiliate links? I forgot. But anyway, you mean just the Amazon links and kind of stuff, right? Okay, yeah. But I show them, so I hope you can search it on your own. But so let me tell you how I got to this brilliant introduction to the theory of moral sentiments, and why this confuses me about Amartya Sen as a person even more, okay? On some portions, you'll think it's absolutely brilliant. In some portions, you'll think that, oh, it's the classic Amartya Sen we know. And then in some portions, you'll get surprised that, okay, does he know what he's saying? Is he saying this consciously? Is he really against reservations, as I think he unknowingly is, at least on a moral level, if you just ask him as a slogan? See, the problem is that a lot of our positions don't go beyond slogans, okay? Especially if we are lay, some people are lay people, and like we are all we all have lay views on something or the other. On some things, we may have well fleshed out, well thought out views. On something, we just believe in slogans. Okay, I was hearing a great discussion on philosophy today between two YouTubers I like. So they were saying, one of them was saying that, kind of in the end, that YouTuber had debated a flat earther, and he remembered all the points that, no, you see how to prove that the earth is spherical and stuff. But in the end, he could not remember all the details, but he was basically impressed by the counter argument presented by the flat earther guy, that you don't really know all the technicals, right? You ultimately believe it just because there are a huge number of scientists who have proved in their own ways that the earth is spherical, but you don't know it. You believe in it just as a belief, a faith, or just the faith that since there are so many scientists, it sahi hi hoga. Usse zyada kuch hai nahi. So it's not like you have a well thought out view. So instead, I, as a flat earther, I'm not a flat earther. Okay, don't cut out a clip of this. If I'm as a flat earther proving to you, whereas you are not proving to me anything, you are just saying that yes, the earth is flat because you know other people who have proven it. Who is the one operating on faith here? So of course, some people will believe some things on the layman level or on the slogan level, and some things we think out well enough. So I'm not sure if Amartya Sen has thought these things, thought the reservation line out well enough, or he is genuinely against reservation in his heart but doesn't say so outside, or he is against reservations actually even morally, but maybe he's just a bad person, or maybe he's just an evil man, and therefore wants reservations to go on because it harms the country. And he is a big Mamata Banerjee supporter, and he thinks Nitish Kumar would make a great prime minister. So who knows? So how I got to that book. Okay, first of all, we know that Adam Smith's main important work is The Wealth of Nations, right? By the way, I did not know until I bought this book that the book is actually called, the title Wealth of Nations actually diminishes the let's say the mahatva of the actual name of the book. Okay, the actual name of the book is An Inquiry into, it's a long name. Okay, I again forgot. An inquiry into the like causes and some things of the wealth of nations. Okay, so that's the actual name. So why that is actually a better title than just The Wealth of Nations is because he is not out there writing a manifesto or a book full of slogans and just ideologies. Okay, he is taking the seeker's mindset and attitude while starting the book, which is why the name is An Inquiry. I'm trying to delve into this topic. Let's see what comes out. That sort of an attitude Adam Smith took while writing this book. And there's another great example which actually is discussed in the theory of moral sentiments. Actually, there's a beautiful name of a chapter which will also tell you how Adam Smith thought. We will get to that, of course, in this live stream. But so this is the book, by the way, a beautiful publication. This is by the same people who published the Das Kapital, the version I have. Okay, see, it looks nice, no? Nice all around, beautiful quality, etc. It's by Fingerprint Classics. Okay, so and it has two nice quotes in the front cover and the back cover. So the front cover says, "Man is an animal that makes bargains. No other animal does this. No dog exchanges bones with another. Jo hai mera hai." So and on the back side it says, a quote says from this book that there is no art which one government sooner learns of another than that of draining money from the pockets of the people. And whatever I have skimmed through little pages, it seems like it's basically the Arthashastra of the West. Okay. Okay. So while reading this version, the introduction is actually brilliant, and it's not even called introduction. It's called Short Account of the Life and Writings of Dr. Adam Smith. Okay. And there I came to know that David Hume, another famous philosopher, he was writing a letter congratulating Adam Smith on writing this book. Okay. The person who wrote that introduction was casually discussing this book, and while discussing this book, he mentioned that David Hume had wrote to him congratulating about the success of this book. Now, David Hume was sarcastically, hilariously, humorously making the point that, some people, he mentioned some Greek philosopher, people who think that they have done a bad job with their work if it becomes too popular. Okay, it's like, let's say a jazz musician or a classical musician might think that, why is my song becoming such a hit? Like, think of an obscure American jazz guitarist suddenly going to the Billboard chart topper levels. Okay, or or an obscure jazz musician in Kolkata suddenly becoming as popular as a Chikni Chameli composer. Okay, so uh, David Hume is telling Adam Smith that if you really think that way, I have bad news for you. Your book is absolutely popular, and in fact, people who won't even probably read it, common people, lay people, housewives, intellectuals, people who are known professors, known intellectuals, the most brilliant minds of Scotland, in England, everyone is buying it. The book is selling out everywhere. There are big lines out of outside bookstalls and bookshops, etc. So that's it. So then I thought, okay, then I must buy this book as well. इतना भी क्या है उस book में भाई? So and another point he made is that David Hume made that which is actually evident from what I've said about Sri Aurobindo's The Life Divine. I think the 99.99% of the people who have the book The Life Divine by Sri Aurobindo in their homes have not read it, because that print is basically impossible to read. First of all, because Sri Aurobindo's English writing itself, which is maniacal. Okay, I don't know, it's probably the ICS training, that's why he had that kind of English. And secondly, since it's a 1200 page book almost, and it's just this thin, they have done gigantic cost cutting, the Aurobindo Institute publishers, and even they know it's just a status symbol. It's a signal theory that's going on. I want to show you that I'm such a, to put it crassly, I'm an intellectual who reads stuff like spiritual stuff like Sri Aurobindo, and I have it in my showcase. But it's absolutely fucking possible that they have read it. And also, so because of the cost cutting, the pages are almost thin as air. Okay, if you read Life Divine, and the light angle, the angle of the light is a bit wrong, you will be able to see 3-4 pages through it. Okay, so that's how I know that most people who own the book have not read it. Now this book, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, became like that when it came out. Now this book came out in 1759. Wealth of Nations came out in 1776. But this was, in a way, Adam Smith's first book as well as Adam Smith's last book, because he did 6 editions of this. The 6th edition came out just a few months before Adam Smith passed away, sometime around 1784. Okay. Now, the brilliant things that Amartya Sen does here, one of them is that he steelmans Adam Smith's arguments so well, which we know from Amartya Sen's works and his associations and his and the things he's said over the years, that he actually does not agree with those things. Okay, he's officially a developmental economist, right? Even then, sometimes he tries to portray Adam Smith as if he is kind of in his camp, and sometimes he just brilliantly, clearly defends, okay, Adam Smith's own arguments. That is the brilliant part. But in some portions, he comes out as anti-reservation. Now, in 2009, this book turns 250 years old. What I didn't know is that when I'm ordering this book, I ordered the Penguin Classics version. Okay, this is how it looks. It's a heart shaped out of dollar notes. So I usually buy the Penguin Classics version of any of these old books because it's sort of a guarantee that there won't be too many printing mistakes. The quality will be more or less good, unless it's too costlier than the other ones available. Okay, so when the book comes, I see that it's full of insane scratches. Okay, look at this. Okay, full of scratches. The marks have come off here and there, and it's not like I could tell that it did not. These damages did not happen during the transit. Okay, so what I then realized is, okay, so from 2009 to 2024, this book was sitting in the godown. This book has officially been printed in 2009 and did not sell until today. So it's almost a rare collection even. But first of all, I thought, why is Amartya Sen being asked to write an introduction to the theory of moral sentiments? And that introduction works like a gist of the book. So what we are going to listen to today is basically the gist of the book. And let me first clarify what's the importance of reading the introduction to let's say theory of moral sentiments. Okay, introductions of a book are like gym workouts or doing just yoga. Okay, so any workout is better than no workout. So any workout is necessary, but they might not be sufficient. So knowing the introduction, the gist of the book is obviously way better than not knowing anything about this book, right? So of course, I would say that try to read this book anyway in its entirety. But if not, have fun listening to the introduction as well. So first, I'm wondering, why is this developmental economist guy being asked to write a foreword? Basically, it's a foreword or introduction for the father of essentially modern capitalism. What's going on? Then I remember this book came out in 2009. No, so in 2008 the market crash has happened, and Penguin has decided that in 2009 let's bring out this book. Or maybe Amartya Sen contacted Penguin themselves that and said that why don't you all do a 250-year anniversary book and version, and I'll write the introduction. Because either Penguin told this to Amartya Sen or Amartya Sen said this to Penguin that let's do a rebranding of Adam Smith. And who better to do it than a guy who is known to criticize capitalism as we know it today, and who comes from the developmental neo-commie side of economics. So hence Amartya Sen and Adam Smith come together. It's a weird crossover that maybe no one asked for, but you see here that listening to this live stream today, you will understand that Amartya Sen, after all, is at least on academic rigor level, actually is a brilliant man, skill wise, but his views on stuff, views on practical matters that matter day to day, these things also matter indirectly. Like I am on a different side of the political viewpoints, and I am getting better educated because of his introduction. So indirectly, Amartya Sen is contributing to this side of the political aisle as well. But the things that matter just today, tomorrow, on those things, Amartya Sen has insane views. Like I guess Noam Chomsky as well. Many linguists say that he's the greatest of all time and stuff. When it comes to politics, he's a nutcase. अभय सिंह दादा पढ़े जाने वाली पुस्तक की भूमिका बांध रहे हैं. Commie light government promotes commie who criticize the capitalism during a global. Amen. M Shastri gets it. तो yeah, so rebranding of Amartya Sen के लिए rebranding of Adam Smith के लिए शायद Amartya Sen को बुलाया गया. Okay, now let's get to this. That we know that the crash is happening, and we know capitalism is to blame, although it wasn't completely to be blamed. It was Bill Clinton's doing as well, indirectly or even directly. But how about we take a re-look at Adam Smith and see that he was not that evil capitalist man we know of. Okay, that's the kind of thing Penguin were probably going for, and a chance to sell an old book also. So resell a chance. Okay, now listen to this. Amartya Sen writes, the theory of moral sentiments. Oh, sorry. One other thing I need to mention. I'm basically giving you a gist of the gist. Okay. One other thing you must remember is that actually people have underestimated how important this book is. Whenever we hear the name Adam Smith, we directly think of Wealth of Nations. But actually, Amartya Sen points out and in fact proves that this book is absolutely the intellectual predecessor to the Wealth of Nations. And in fact, people are so unaware of this connection that people think it's a dichotomy, that he says completely different things on different topics in that book, but on Wealth of Nations, why is it a different Adam Smith? But actually, it's a direct continuation. Okay, it's an intellectual lineage. So the Theory of Moral Sentiments, Adam Smith's first book, was published in early 1759. Smith, then a young professor at the University of Glasgow. By the way, let me just give you another factor just for context. Adam Smith started out as a professor of logic. He taught logic for just 1 year, then taught moral philosophy for 12 years, then became the economist that we know today. Or at least a thinker on economics, writer of economics. Even though one of his best students, John Miller, actually became a famous law professor as well. So obviously a genius on all subjects, many subjects. Smith, then a young professor at the University of Glasgow, had some understandable anxiety about the public reception of the book, which was based on his quite radical lectures. On April 12, 1759, Smith heard from his friend David Hume in London the letter that I actually read in the Wealth of Nations, from his friend David Hume in London, about how the book was doing. David Hume told him, if Smith was prepared for the worst, quote unquote, then he must now be given the melancholy news, quote unquote, that unfortunately the public seem disposed to applaud your book extremely. It's a joke, obviously, that your become is so popular. Okay, it was looked now David Hume is saying, it's a quote from David Hume, it was looked for by the foolish people with some impatience, and the mob of literati are beginning already to be very loud in its praises. This light-hearted, end quote. This light-hearted intimation of the early success of Smith's first book would be followed by serious critical acclaim, bringing immediate success to one of the truly outstanding books in the intellectual history of the world. This introduction is concerned specifically with the continued relevance of that remarkable monograph, which was published a quarter of a millennium ago. Even though Smith's investigations and analysis have had a profound impact on the world, especially the economic world, there, there is still much to learn from them. As it happens, after its immediate success, moral sentiments went into something of an eclipse from the beginning of the 19th century, and Smith was increasingly seen almost exclusively as the author of his second book that transformed the subject of economics, which is now the full name, okay? An inquiry into the nature and causes of the wealth of nations, published in 1776, the year USA got its independence. You'll actually understand that we all already know that capitalism of USA, the free market kind of thinking, etc. A lot of it comes from Adam Smith directly, but a lot of the bad behaviors of USA across the world also comes kind of from Adam Smith only. Okay, you'll learn of that. That's the see, you'll never agree with someone 100%, right? So Amartya Sen was so accurate in his depiction that I realized that, whoa, it's kind of a fluctuation of emotions I'm having for Adam Smith as well. On some things, Adam Smith almost becomes absolutely unacceptable to me. Okay, to me personally. So and there are great thought experiments that I'll actually tell you all of, and which I'll kind of ask you all to vote on. Which side are you on? There are some things that are so deep that even I could not have not so far gotten to the bottom of, and have not actually concluded the answer. Okay. The Neglect of Moral Sentiments, this book, which has lasted through the 19th and the 20th centuries, has had two rather unfortunate effects. First, even though Adam Smith was in many ways the pioneering analyzer of the need for impartiality and universality in ethics, even then he has been fairly comprehensively ignored in contemporary ethics and philosophy. The Moral Sentiments preceded the better known and much more influential contributions of Immanuel Kant, who refers to Adam Smith generously. This book, Moral Sentiments, actually came out 30 years before Immanuel Kant's first great book. Okay. Second, the second problem that has happened in the world because of this book becoming so underrated, since the ideas presented in The Wealth of Nations have been interpreted largely without reference to the framework of thought already developed in the Moral Sentiments, on which Smith substantially draws in The Wealth of Nations, the typical understanding of the wealth of nations has been constrained, to the detriment of economics as a subject. The neglect applies, among other issues, to the appreciation of the demands of rationality, the need for recognizing the plurality of human motivations, the connections between ethics and economics, and the codependent rather than the freestanding role of institutions in general and free markets in particular in the functioning of the economy. Okay, so the codependency, the codependent role of institutions rather than the freestanding nature of institutions in the in a free market or in a general economy. Shubhajit Sen is saying, to what extent was Adam Smith's capitalism responsible for the genocide of Native Americans? I would say a whole lot. Well, Adam Smith wrote his first book in 1759, and Europeans arrived to kill Native Americans in 1492. So I don't know what you're talking about. अमर्त्य सेन ने क्या गलती से रिजर्वेशंस के खिलाफ लिख दिया है फ्लो में? Indirectly, what the things he says, if you interpret them, not interpret them, you basically see that let's say he's criticizing X, but that X actually is, in the context of India, reservations. Okay, we'll get to that. M. Shastri is saying, when it comes to Western intellectuals, thought framework and the context around which it was developed matters, but for Indian thought, that should not exist. Fair enough. So, rather than freestanding, okay, the moral sentiments and the wealth of nations. So these are the subchapters that deal with specific topics in the main entirety of the rest of the book. Okay, so the first topic is moral sentiments and the wealth of nations. Not only are Smith's two books related, but his ideas in them also had something of a common origin. Smith had been appointed to the professorship of logic at the University of Glasgow in 1751, Scotland, but he moved to the chair of moral philosophy the following year and held that position until 1764. His lectures on the subject not only contained the material on which the moral sentiments would draw, But as one of his students, John Miller, who later became professor of law at Glasgow, noted, the last part of his 4 lecture series also, quote unquote, contained the substance of the work he afterwards published under the title of An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations. Given the pervasive interdependence of these 2 books, it is amazing that many Smith commentators have been inclined to see a huge dichotomy between the two. So Amartya Sen now is pointing out that people think there are these are two gigantically different and separate books, okay, or works, which they are not. Indeed, there is quite a voluminous literature on what has been called the quote unquote Adam Smith problem, the common element of which is the fanciful belief that there is an inconsistency. The fanciful belief, okay, it's not at least according to Amartya Sen, it's not a correct belief, that there is inconsistency between Smith's arguments presented in the moral sentiments, which quote unquote attributed conduct to sympathy, and in the Wealth of Nations, which allegedly saw behavior as quote unquote being based on selfishness. So people wonder, how can you operate based on sympathy and selfishness at the same time? Because sympathy is for someone else, selfishness for yourself. A recurrently asked question has been, why did Smith abandon his earlier approach when he came to write The Wealth of Nations? In fact, Smith never abandoned what he presented in the moral sentiments. Rather, he continued to advance that. By the way, guys, for those of you who probably won't listen to the entirety of this live stream, let me give you one spoiler. Even back in fucking 1759, okay, or in 1776 actually, when in Wealth of Nations he expounds on this more. Adam Smith had 2 distinct qualities which almost no white man in that time zone had, okay. One is, he believed every man actually genuinely has equal potential. He or she is held back by just their surroundings, education level, economy of the locality, etc. Okay, which even Immanuel Kant didn't believe. Okay, anyone who has read India, that is Bharat by J. Sai Deepak knows that Immanuel Kant believed that काले लोगों के मतलब अफ्रीकन्स से कुछ हो नहीं पाएगा, कभी हो नहीं पाएगा, और इंडियन से भी कुछ हो नहीं पाएगा, मगर थोड़ा मारपीट करने से, मतलब थोड़ा मतलब डंडा मारने से उनको थोड़ा बहुत काम करवाया जा सकता है. That was the extent of Kant's views, okay. And the views that are now usually said by Christian apologists that we believe every man is equal because everyone is made in the image of God. ये सब तब भोसरी वाले बिलीव नहीं करते थे, ठीक है. Adam fucking Smith believed this even in 1776. More importantly, he actually is also the intellectual ancestor of Thomas Sowell. Obviously, I should have known about this, but he says something that has been now popularized by Thomas Sowell. Even Thomas Sowell wasn't able to popularize it. Ben Shapiro popularized Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell actually has talked about this, which even Adam Smith mentioned this in 1776. So it has been a common fucking knowledge, but people refuse to believe it, which is that India, he specially mentions Bengal, that these places are prosperous because of their beautiful, seas, rivers, waterways. They can trade with anyone. Africa can't. Africa is poor and will forever have predicaments because of their insane geography. You can't access the inlands, okay. And he also, by the way, mentions in 1776, when the British government in India is just 19 years old, right? 1757 to 1776, okay. In 1776, Adam Smith is saying the British government is unfit, quote unquote, literally unfit to rule India because they are being so oppressive. Let's continue now. Which Thomas Sowell book should I begin with? If you are used to reading books, then start with his big book, Basic Economics, then go on to Applied Economics. If not, if you want a simple start, then start with Economic Facts and Fallacies. Is Sanyal still a part of ESCPM? Yeah. So, why did Smith abandon his earlier approach when he came to write The Wealth of Nations? In fact, Smith never abandoned what he presented in the moral sentiments. Rather, he continued to advance that perspective with many additional illustrations, even as he was engaged in presenting The Wealth of Nations. The first version of the moral sentiments, published in 1759, was revised in the second edition in 1761, in the third in 1767, and in the fourth in 1774. Then, 5 years after the publication of The Wealth of Nations, came the fifth edition of Moral Sentiments, followed by a final and much extended edition, the sixth, in 1790, shortly before Smith's death the same year. So, Smith dies in 1790. It is interesting to note that Smith's first book, The Moral Sentiments, was also his last. in the form of the much expanded 6th edition, with the wealth of nations coming in between. Indeed, in the advertisement, there is a chapter that he begins with. It's called advertisement. Now, advertisement does not obviously mean that the word as we know it today. Advertisement in Bengali, there's a word called biggopti. Okay, sounds like a Sanskrit rooted word. Let me know if you'll know what I mean. Okay, sort of an announcement kind of a thing. Okay, vigyapti kind of a thing, and vigyapan is biggapan is advertisement in Bengali. But what Adam Smith meant here by advertisement is actually biggopti. So, in the advertisement to the final edition of Moral Sentiments, Smith recollected the promise he had made in the earlier editions, quote, to give an account of the general principles of law and government and of the different revolutions they have undergone in the different ages and periods of society, end quote. He went on to say that in the Wealth of Nations, quote, I have partly executed this promise, end quote. In each book, Smith talks about a variety of human motivations, including both sympathy and self-love, and also many other concerns that drive human beings. If self-love is of special relevance in seeking some particular explanation, have important roles in explaining, then other motivations have important roles in explaining other types of choices. For example, work discipline and a commitment to obeying good rules and to treating others with respect and honor, which is one of the main three reasons for the success of Indians all around the world. It's not entirely sympathy or self-interest. Indians mainly operate on work discipline, commitment to obeying good rules, and treating others with respect and honor. No. The role of self-love in explaining particular economic phenomena does nothing to reduce the relevance of different other motivations in the understanding of other economic regularities. Okay, so self-love hai, self-love sab kuch nahi hai, and acknowledging self-love also does not take away from the other as legit reasons for economic actions. Okay, sympathy and self-love, different topic now. There is a strong tradition in the economic literature that has tended to assume, indeed even assert, that Adam Smith apparently believed, quote, self-interest dominates the majority of men, end quote. To quote the distinguished economist George Stigler, who took this belief, which he championed to be on quote-unquote Smithian lines. A great many economists were, and some still are, evidently quite enchanted by something that has come to be called quote-unquote rational choice theory, in which rationality is identified with intelligently pursuing self-interest. Further, following that fashion in modern economics, a whole generation of rational choice political analysts and of experts in so-called quote-unquote law and economics, quote-unquote law and economics, okay, have been cheerfully practicing the same narrow art. And they have been citing Smith in alleged support of their cramped and simplistic theory of human rationality. Here, I have a hunch that he's trying to do a rebranding of Adam Smith here. The conviction that Smith believed in the dominating presence and also the rationality of human selfishness has even found its way into English literature via a limerick by Stephen Leacock, who was both a professional economist and a talented literary writer. So listen to this small poem on Adam Smith, okay, by Stephen Leacock. He writes, Adam Smith, listen what I charge you with. Didn't you say in a class one day that selfishness was bound to pay? Of all doctrines, that was the pith. Wasn't it, Smith? So in contrast, now the counter argument from Amartya comes by directly quoting Adam Smith. In contrast, the Moral Sentiments actually begins with the following observation. Quote from Adam Smith directly. How selfish soever man may be supposed, there are evidently some principles in his nature which interest him in the fortune of others and render their happiness necessary to him, though he derives nothing from it except the pleasure of seeing it, like feeding a stray dog some biscuits. That we often derive sorrow from the sorrow of others, that you feel pain from seeing the pain of others, is of a matter of fact too obvious to require any instances to prove it. It's just common sense. Everyone knows it. It's just too obvious. Because this sentiment, like all other original passions of human nature, is by no means confined to the virtuous and the human. It's not like just rishi muni kar rahe hain, aisa nahi hai. It's lots of people do it. though they perhaps may feel it with most exquisite sensibility. Okay, the virtuous and humane people only feel it with some most exquisite sensibility, but even then, the greatest ruffian, the most hardened violator of the laws of society, is not altogether without it. Okay, you may know a criminal in your neighborhood, a local political party gunda, who probably feeds stray dogs. Okay, or if you are in good terms with him, but that guy maybe has murdered 2 3 people, but he sees you and cuddles the cheeks of your newborn toddler, maybe. Okay, that kind of a thing we are talking about here. While some men are born small and some achieve smallness, it is clear enough that Smith has had much smallness thrust upon him. Okay, that's where the quote ended, and now Amartya Sen is saying that some people are born small and achieve smallness, but whatever Smith's achievements could have been, they have been actually reduced by thinking of him just in terms of his book Wealth of Nations, whereas he must be looked at him in the light of moral sentiments as well. Smith famously discussed that to explain the motivation for economic exchange in the market, we do not have to invoke any objective other than the pursuit of self interest. In his most famous and widely quoted passage from the Wealth of Nations, he wrote, quote, "It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interest." Okay. We address ourselves not to their humanity, but to their self love. So I am banking on, I'm trusting the fact that he probably has his own interests in his mind, his own stomach, his own family's interests in mind. So I am going to pay him. He is actually going to give me food instead in exchange of that money. So he is looking after his own intentions, and I'm looking after my own interests, and we both go home happy. Actually, this reminds me. I was listening to a great podcast on Rene Girard, the famous philosopher. Rene Girard passed away, I think, in 2007, or he said this in 2007. He had actually predicted that USA and China relations will go downhill real fast because of this kind of a thing. What Adam Smith is pointing out here, USA and China were actually the opposite of this kind of a situation. Okay, and Rene Girard saw it. So back in the 2000s, you all are seeing the advent of Bruce Lee is already famous. Everyone is learning karate all across America. Jackie Chan movies are coming up suddenly, and someone had obviously nudged from the government to the producers that make some good collaboration movies with China, because we want to portray China as our friend, and let this become a mainstream truism that we China and us are basically equals and similar people, and see how capitalism saved us. We are going to do business with each other, and our goals are essentially the same. There are no essentially clash of civilizations. Eastern religion, Western religion, ये सब गलत है. हम दोनों अमीर बन जाएंगे, and then we'll be friends hereafter. Okay, for the rest of our lives. Rene Girard is saying it won't fucking happen, because when we are talking about capitalism making reducing conflict, it only happens when different people have actually different motivations and different interests in mind. Okay, it won't happen if both people are vying for the same fucking objective. Then capitalism can't save you. So what's happening in this situation, the butcher is giving me meat. If he also wants one particular piece of meat, okay, and only wants to eat that pig for his dinner, and I also want that, then it's of course not a matter of money. Okay, because his self interest is still intact, but his self interest now tells him that that pig is going to be very very tasty, and the other guy also thinks, no, I want to buy this pig as well. Then there's only conflict, and capitalism can't do anything to solve that conflict. So Rene Girard actually saw it beforehand, a philosopher, that China and USA are too similar now. They are vying for the exact same rank one spot. They want the same kinds of values for their countries. They want the same kinds of power. तो जितना खुद में बिजनेस कर लो, इसमें इसमें बवाल होने ही वाला है. Nice. So that is why enmity between different criminal gangs and partnership with others. And this is like the counter to Annadata shit. Yes, taxpayers are literally the Annadata. Okay, let's continue. Self-love. So Adam Smith was saying we address ourselves not to their humanity but to their self-love. End quote. Unfortunately, in the tradition of interpreting Adam Smith as the guru of selfishness or self-love, as he often called it, not with great admiration, or at least Amartya Sen is claiming that Adam Smith did not say the words selfishness or self-love as an appreciation. Okay. So unfortunately, in the tradition of interpreting Smith as the guru of selfishness or self love, the reading of his writings does not seem to go much beyond those lines. Even though that discussion is addressed only to one very specific issue, namely exchange, only exchange, rather than distribution or production. On those topics, he has not talked about self love. And in particular, the motivation underlying that exchange, okay, rather than what makes normal exchanges sustainable, such as trust and confidence between two parties. In the rest of now, what does Amartya Sen mean here by trust and confidence between two parties? Obviously, contract enforcement can be one example, right? I can do business with you, but we are not going to do business with you, or at least we can't do big business with you as if I'm dealing with just my local grocery shop, right? I'm going to buy in bulk. I'm going to pay you advance. Okay, you are going to deliver me extremely important things, or you are going to deliver to me things that you can't even make or won't make unless I pay you that advance. Now, if I pay you the advance, how do I know you are actually going to make it or not, or you are not going to run away to another country or state? So contract enforcement has to happen, and that contract enforcement has to happen from a third party, the government. If that third party doesn't do the contract enforcement, we go back to just tribes fighting each other. Now our states are such weak, corrupt entities that they do interfere, even though they are the non-stakeholder third parties, even though they more often than not interfere after two parties have negotiated the price amongst themselves, or could have negotiated the price point among themselves. But they interfere and fuck that negotiation up and drive up the price of the entire thing, whereas they should be sticking to just protecting life, liberty and property, and in this case fucking enforcing the contracts, which our judiciary doesn't do. Hindi chini bhai bhai lol. Yes. So Meera Tripathi, you are a bit wrong here. You are saying that this will happen when two entities are on same level and standards, or almost same level. Yes, I guess. I mean, you could say that China and USA are kind of now getting close to each other, so the problem is happening. But what Rene Girard had predicted is that they are on the same direction anyway. So it was bound to happen anyway. I guess you are right that if China was not this close to, if it was, let's say, still the third or fourth largest GDP, there would not be that much problems between China and USA even today. So yeah, you are right only. Abhirzan is saying if one has to be truly selfish, one has to rely on others' exchanges, but paranoiacal selfishness gets us nowhere, which is even antithetical to selfishness. Are we in dilemma now? We'll get to those things. Was the whole not taxing the farmers thing a rebuttal post-independence where the Indian government wouldn't want to interfere in? Yes. Very sophisticated term for ranked selfishness. Self-love has become a fashionable. Yeah. That term has been bastardized. So, in the rest of Smith's writings, there are extensive discussions of the role of other motivations that influence human action and behavior. Okay. Now we get to a topic called economics and the limitations of the profit motive. Here, I think, based on the limited economics and politics I know, I think Amartya Sen is going to rebrand Adam Smith here. Okay, see, beyond self-love, Smith discussed how the functioning of the economic systems in general and of the markets in particular can be helped enormously by other motives. There are two distinct propositions here. The first is one of epistemology, concerning the fact that human beings are not guided only by self-gain or even prudence, practicality. The second is one of practical reason, involving the claim that there are good ethical and practical grounds. There are good ethical and practical reasons for encouraging motives which are not self-interest, whether in the crude form of self-love or in the refined form of practicality. There are reasons to go beyond that. Indeed, Smith argues that while quote-unquote prudence was, quote, of all the virtues that which is most helpful to the individual. This is a great fucking line here. Listen to this, guys, with very carefully. Amartya Sen is pointing out that Adam Smith had said that Prudence of all the virtues is that which is most helpful to the individual. Humanity, justice, generosity, and public spirit are the qualities most useful to others. Okay. So, for the individual, prudence is most important, but for others, humanity, justice, generosity, and public spirit are the most important qualities. These are two distinct points, and unfortunately, a big part of modern economics gets both of them wrong in interpreting Adam Smith. The nature of the present economic crisis illustrates very clearly the present economic crisis, meaning 2008 crisis. Okay. Now he's going to do absolute rebranding of Adam Smith and rebranding of the crash itself, market crash. The nature of the present economic crisis illustrates very clearly the need for departures from unmitigated and unrestrained self-seeking in order to have a decent society, even though that problem began with the self-interest and self-love of Bill Clinton. I've told this story many times. Let me know if you all want to listen to this again. Yeah, but and prudence. Let me just give you a context if anyone's joining for the first time. Bill Clinton was the one who told the banks, give so much loans that almost everyone gets a home, so that I can go basically directly or indirectly say that, you see, under my governance, everyone was a homeowner. And see, if you have a Rottweiler, and instead of protecting your home with the Rottweiler, you set it among your kids or your neighbors, it's not the Rottweiler's fault. Okay. If especially if that Rottweiler is sort of a potent, trained to do that only. So think of capitalism here, or the capitalists, or the big bankers who have been trained for 14-15 years of their lives, the MBAs from Wharton, graduation, masters, okay, all their lives, they have trained themselves for maximizing profit. Then they work in the industry for another 10-15 years, and then the president comes and says, give as many loans as you want, no problem. What the fuck do you think that guy is going to do? What is he even supposed to do? What did Bill Clinton think was going to happen? I'll tell you, of course, what happened. The banks and I guess even the political establishment honestly thought people would just, if they just work hard enough, and they will work hard enough and pay back those loans. Not only did they not pay back those loans, the bankers, of course, put other people's different kinds of money and bet them on the mortgages getting paid back or not, and therefore the market of the entire world crashed. But of course, Amartya is going to blame that on capitalism itself. So unrestrained self-seeking in order to have a decent society. Even John McCain, the 2008 US Republican presidential candidate, complained constantly in his campaign speeches of the greed of Wall Street. And now I like the phrase, I like the use of the word even here. Okay, this even is very important. Amartya has done this unknowingly. John McCain, he's using John McCain as a token Republican who seems to agree with me. Okay, now this tokenism sometimes is legit, sometimes valid, sometimes it's just harami chutiaba. Okay, so imagine if you're watching NDTV before, especially before Adani bought it, the BJP leaning guys who would be called to debate on NDTV would be absolute kind of fools. Okay, whereas on Republic as well, in Republic as well, the anti-BJP guys who get called are absolute fools. Similarly, on ABP Anando, the BJP guys that are bought almost are not given proper time. I mean, they are the ones who can't manage their speaking time or are not great debaters. Or of course, since ABP Anando is the fucking king of subtle messaging in, I think, entire India, they bring BJP representatives who look foolish, dress foolishly, or talk foolishly. And by foolishly, I mean here people who don't, who are not members of the Bhadralok tastes. Okay, so they know what they're doing, and I know what I'm saying when I say that they look foolish. They look foolish to the Bhadralok tastes. Okay, but they want to create the interpretation that it's only these kinds of people who do BJP. But anyway, so when people do come out of these molds, they do another haramegiri, which is they call only those token detractors and heterodoxes from the other camp who probably actually have some vested interests. Today, like Subramaniam Swamy gets called by Kapil Sibal and stuff, is that kind of stuff. There will always be a Republican who says, yes, even Trump is bad. And remember, John McCain was one of those people. He hated Trump from the get-go. Okay, there will be Democrats like Tulsi Gabbard who are also used for these purposes. Now, Tulsi has actually proven herself that she has now joined Republicans, but until now, she used to be treated that way. I guess useful idiots is a legit word to use here. So, uh, the token, even that guy, वो भी बोल रहा है. Now, Amartya Sen is doing that same thing. Even John McCain says so. Even a Republican, and he's using John McCain for another very specific purpose. John McCain was a military veteran. If you all have seen Rambo, all the tortures that Sylvester Stallone faces in Vietnam. Okay, rats going up his body, biting his wounds, people pressing cigarettes on him. Okay, those things actually have been faced by John McCain. He was a war prisoner of war with the Vietnamese, and he had to be rescued. So he has a absolute credible military sort of a nationalistic patriotic career. Plus he's on the Republican side. Even he is saying that greed of Wall Street is too bad. Please react to the US presidential debates this week. बहुत waste of time है भाई. The greed of Wall Street. Smith had a diagnosis for this. He called promoters of excessive risk in search of profits, quote unquote, prodigals and projectors. Now, we don't really understand why is it such a bad word. Amartya Sen does a brilliant job here. He actually goes into the shorter Oxford dictionary and points out that prodigals and projectors were basically used as a gali back then. Okay. Which, by the way, is quite a good description of many of the entrepreneurs of credit swaps, insurance, and subprime mortgages over the recent past. The term projector is used by Smith not in the neutral sense of quote unquote one who forms a project, but in the pejorative sense, in the gali sense, apparently common from 1616. So I gather from the short Oxford English Dictionary, meaning among other things, quote, a promoter of bubble companies, a speculator, a cheat, end quote. Indeed, Jonathan Swift's unflattering portrait of quote unquote projectors in Gulliver's Travels, published in 1726, 50 years before The Wealth of Nations, corresponds closely to what Smith seems to have had in mind. Relying entirely on an unregulated market economy can result in a dire predicament in which, as Smith writes, quote, a great part of the capital of the country, quote, end quote, is, quote, kept out of the hands which were most likely to make a profitable and advantageous use of it, and thrown into those which were most likely to waste and destroy it, end quote. Now here Amartya Sen's rebranding phase is going on, okay, of Adam Smith. See, I of course agree with word for word what Adam Smith said here. Yes, projectors are those kinds of speculative, let's say people like Sudeep Sen kind of people, okay, the cheat fund managers. And yes, if you keep a completely unregulated market, even things like not enforcing of contracts, yes, it will go to hell. State का तो है काम डंडा लेके घूमना, डंडा मारना इसलिए ताकि वो ठीक से काम कर सके. डंडा मार के उसको इंज्योर्ड करके हॉस्पिटल भेजने का काम वो डंडे का नहीं है. But where Amartya Sen's sinister rebranding is going on is that he is echoing Smith's criticisms of a hypothetical situation on directly the 2008 market crash, which was kind of started by Bill fucking Clinton. Anyway, any important comments? Yeah. React on renaming Hinduism video on Sangam Talk. Pata nahi kab hoga. I'm too busy with books and important topics now. Smith's criticism of an unregulated market economy did not go unchallenged. Even back then, Adam Smith was challenged from the right, which is why I said actually Adam Smith is not the kind of right wing you think, which is actually a great work that Amartya Sen has done with this introduction. He has explained, he has clarified to me even that Adam Smith is not a libertarian, complete withering away of the state guy. He is more on the Chanakya side, because people who are on the further right economically of Adam Smith, they criticized him in the same way. They said to look at this example. Okay, it is a matter of some historical interest that Jeremy Bentham took Smith to task in a letter. In a long letter he wrote to him in March 1787, arguing that Smith should leave the market alone. He argued, for those whom Smith saw as quote-unquote projectors with various projects of making quick money were also the innovators and pioneers of change and progress. This is not actually a wrong argument. The people who come up with those insane ways of robbing people are in fact innovators, but since those are unintended consequences, we can't go around fucking sanctioning them from the state side, right? Let's say you come up with a great way to steal someone's house, So just because it's a great innovative method, maybe you do 50 push-ups and 50 pull-ups to do that achievement. So in order to treat you as a great fitness influencer, I'm not going to sanction your stealing of that building, right? So I guess that's the problem with Jeremy Bentham's argument here. Smith should leave the markets alone. So he argued that for those whom Smith saw as projectors with various projects of making quick money were also the innovators and pioneers of change and progress. Smith was good-humored about the critique, but he knew the distinction between projectors and innovators well enough. And there is little evidence, despite Bentham's expectation, that Smith wanted to revise what he had said on the need for regulation. Okay, it's not like Adam Smith did not say that I'm not changing my mind on regulation. He knows that regulation needs to be minimal. To understand the maturity of a country's financial stability in a way that is, as it happens, immediately relevant to the current economic crisis, it is extremely important to pay attention to Smith's argument that, quote, when the people of any particular country have such confidence in the fortune, probity, and prudence, practicality, okay, or effectiveness of a particular banker, as to believe that he is always ready to pay upon demand such of his promissory notes, meaning जो promise किया गया था उसके हिसाब से real cash notes, as are likely to be at any time presented to him, those notes come to have the same currency as gold and silver money from the confidence that such money can at any time be had for them. और ये confidence कहाँ से आएगा? State enforcing proper law, regulation, enforcing contracts, right? Saugad is saying Thomas Well said affirmative actions never work, and most of the times only the most fortunate untouchables benefit from affirmative action in India. Yes, I'm all for strong but small state. Yes, Dada, did you like Sanjeev Sanyal lecture at Cambridge? And you should look up New Economic Menace by Bipin Chandra Pal. Acha, I have too many books too now. No, I have not looked at that lecture. I'm listening to some purely academic stuff now. So, the contract enforcement. Such confidence need not always pre-exist or survive, Smith argued, okay? Such confidence need not always pre-exist or survive. A climate of mutual trust has to be cultivated and fostered. And that is the main problem that Pakistan does not understand. हमारे institutions ठीक है, effective नहीं है, जितना अच्छा होना चाहिए नहीं है, और भी अच्छा अभी भी हो सकता है if Modi handles things with a strong hand. He has his own restraints and stuff. But Pakistan does not even understand the problem. They have completely meddled with their institutions so much that there is no environment in the air of trust on anything. Like the kind of thing, I guess, another state that we know of in India is going to head in the direction of which if I talk about, I'll be having an FIR in my name. A climate of mutual trust has to be cultivated. And fostered. Even though the champions of the baker, brewer, butcher reading of Smith, that you work in your interest, I work in my interest, even though the champions of that kind of thought, enshrined in many economics books, may be at a complete loss about how to understand the present economic crisis, the 2008 crisis, since people still have excellent reason to seek more trade even now, in the middle of the crisis, only far less opportunity. The devastating consequences of mistrust and the collapse of mutual confidence would not have puzzled Smith. Silent night, holy night. Okay. Yes, even small boys are not untouchables for... Okay, now unfortunately, I need to end the live stream now because it's 10:05 already and I need to do other things right now. But I'll come back today, okay? I did not know it will take so much time just introducing and I did not understand that there would be so much to discuss. It's just 58 minutes, okay? I thought I would be over by now, okay? So I'm coming back at around 12, okay? To do part 2 of this. Sorry, guys. Thank you for joining. Bye-bye. Good night.
श्रवरूढं महाभीमं गुणाद्रष्टाम्बरप्रदम् अस्य युक्तं त्रिनेत्रं च कपालकर्णिकाकरान् मुक्तकेशीं ललज्जयं पिबन्तीं रुधिरं चतुर्बाहु समायुक्तं वराभं बाहू समायुक्ता वराहाय करांस्मरे काली काली महाकाली कालिके पापहारिणी धर्मार्थ मोक्ष दे देवी नारायणी नमोस्तुते धर्मार्थ मोक्ष दे देवी नारायणी नमोस्तुते काली काली